Hey, it's Tia Carrere, and you're listening to Kino Kingdom with Britt
and Lazlo
and Rupert. Party on, guys.
Hello all, and thank you for listening and welcome to Kino Kingdom 103, and apologies for the gap. I was deathly ill. I actually died and was brought back to life through a mix of voodoo and Toblerones, which is an extremely Swiss ritual.
And Mission Impossible.
Yeah. Speaking of Mission Impossible, when I was ill, I watched all of them, didn't I? Mm-hmm. I watched all of them because I was lying in a feverish sex dream, just thrashing around the sheets when... take me, I'm ready now. And then I thought, well, I need to watch something because all I could do was lie there and gasp. So I put on, I thought, the only thing I can kind of cope with is Mission Impossible. and so I tried to put on, what was the one I tried to watch? Messenger of Death with Charles Bronson. But within the first 2 minutes, it looks like two farmers are going to shoot kids. And I thought, no, I'm too delicate. So I had to go back to Mission Impossible. Obviously, I skipped the second one because I covered that last month. But we'll talk about why it's a good idea to skip the second one later. But here I am with Rupert and Lazlo, my beautiful co-pilots on this jet into the heart of the female sex. How are you both doing?
Okay, thanks.
Never better.
I tried watching all the Mission Impossible films, but I stopped at 3 because the opening half hour made me feel sick with his editing.
Is it because the camera didn't stay still? It's difficult to make this. If you go on IMDb trivia and you scroll down, I think it's about 2/3 of the way through. It says that the cinematographer later was quoted as saying it's really hard to film a movie when you're standing on a trampoline. It's a little bit of trivia.
I've seen behind the scenes footage of J.J. Abrams actually like shaking the camera from behind the cameraman.
When was it made? 2000. It was around the Bourne time, wasn't it?
No, it's later than that. It was a big gap, wasn't it?
2006, maybe?
Six, yeah.
So it would have been Bourne era, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah. The Bourne series gave us so much, but it almost took away so much, didn't it? In some respects,
took away tripods.
So yeah, there's that, and we've got loads of films to go through. So we've pushed aside all the nonsense, and this episode is just going to be about covering movies. Apart from two things, one of which, Rupert, as you may or may not have been aware, your family may have mentioned it at some point that it was actually in this month. It was your birthday.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, I remember you saying in an older episode that for your birthday when you were a little boy, your father wouldn't hit you hard.
Yeah.
It was he was a giving man, wasn't he? But we have got this little birthday message from none other than Tia Carrere.
Hey, it's Tia Carrere here, off at Wayne's World and that. Just thought I'd wish you a very happy birthday and party on, Rupert, eh? Party on. Yeah.
So she sounds quite different as she does in our introduction.
Smoking a lot in the intervening years.
Yeah. Wayne's World 3, Tia gets on the Rothmans Royals. That's what I'm waiting for. Balls to this, what's it called? Jim and Henry. What was the Bill and Ted? I don't care about that reboot. What I care about is...
Jim and Henry. Those are two snooker players.
Stephen Hendry. Oh, God. Just imagine him as a movie star, Stephen Hendry.
It wouldn't happen, would it?
You could strike a match on his face.
He really could.
And the other thing,
at least he had charisma to make up for it. So it's fine.
The only time that man has had charisma is when he's got a particularly good set of Scrabble tokens in front of him. So we wanted to talk, but I just want to say as well that none of this is prep. I'm just like lightning, mate. We wanted to talk before we go into the movies about our thoughts on digital film. It's something that's cropped up a few times with us in the past, and the reason I posted it in our little KK chat is because I was watching something the other day. It was something on Netflix, and I thought this just isn't Do you know when you had that thing in the 2000s where it was at the loudness wars of music, and I think Metallica with their album Death Magnetic, and it's that the music is it's clipping so much, it's so full tilt, there's no dynamic, and it sort of surreptitiously makes listening uncomfortable. I was watching something the other day, and I think and you two are much more au fait with this sort of technical side of things than I am, but it felt like everything was in focus and too vivid, and it just it made my eyes feel uncomfortable. It was like my eyes didn't know what to settle on screen.
Yes.
And when I became aware of it, I thought, I might turn this off. It was something on Netflix, something modern on Netflix, unbelievable.
Anything on Netflix, basically.
And I just thought there's something about watching certain modern films and TV shows especially that doesn't happen when I watch older films.
Yeah.
There is a thing called I think they call it high shutter speed, that it's kind of going out of vogue again, but I think I dropped out for a sec. It creates an intentionally like crisp image and slightly stuttery motion. So it's used a lot in action films, especially straight to video ones these days, because it makes the action look faster and more kind of violent, but it also looks shit. So does
that affect the motion within the frame?
It means you get almost no motion blur. So it's like very crisp images all the time.
Yeah.
Once you've seen it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that. Yes, I can almost picture it now. There's also high dynamic range, of course, which is like, it's where it means that compared to like old cameras, which have lower dynamic range, like it captures more detail within the lens, so everything's extremely clean, and I believe that using these digital cameras, like you basically a lot of it can be fixed in post. Essentially, this is a real problem with it, and I guess this is where like Ridley Scott comes into it. Is that there's no need to like light a set effectively, because you can just fix it all in post. Everything's captured within the frame, sort of thing. And that's why you have very flat
add the dynamic lighting afterwards,
exactly,
as opposed to getting it
afterwards. Whereas, of course, before with lower exposure, it would mean that you'd have to set up actual light sources and stuff and have a single camera set up. But now, I think we discussed this when we were talking about Gladiator 2, because famously the cinematographer on that basically just fucking threw Ridley Scott under the bus, saying like it was shit because he had 10 camera setups because they're all digital cameras, so you can just like put the camera anywhere and then just fix the lighting in post. And it's a little bit depressing, really. But of course, if you don't necessarily have to take care of it in post. You could just film it, have everything like in focus and lit the same way, and have that really flat look, and be done with it, I guess.
Yeah, they have to kind of universally light things so it caters for all 10 cameras they've got pointed at stuff, so they can't cultivate one beautiful image. You have to kind of allow for the coverage.
And I suppose the motivation behind this probably costs, right? Because if you've got 10 camera setups, you're going to get 10 shots in a day instead of like 2 or whatever.
Yeah.
So
there aren't many top-level Hollywood directors shooting one camera style anymore. I think Christopher Nolan is probably still one of those people who, I'm sure he does use other cameras, but primarily is a single camera guy, and you can kind of tell because his films feel very authored.
Yeah, and also he says, "Oh look, we're getting this set. We're going to need 2 cameras. So if you just want to put that boom mic down, we're not going to need that. Don't you worry about that. You pick up that camera, my boy."
Yeah, he's a one microphone guy as well, and it's pointed the wrong way.
Yeah, he's back in the catering truck.
Yeah. Don't worry about the boom mic. I have my phone's on in my pocket on record, so we'll be fine.
Apparently, the Dune films, I don't know whether both of them, they were shot on digital, then transferred to film, then transferred back to digital. So I guess what he was doing, I suppose, was to give it some kind of film grain, and then get the images back onto digital to have a kind of like cinematic look. I mean,
And
I
they
miss film grain. That's the other thing, of course. You don't have film grain anymore, which is a real loss.
Well, they add it sometimes, but
Oh, do they?
it's rarely effective. Yeah,
Right.
it just looks like noise.
Okay. Yeah, that's not so good.
Have you seen
Yeah.
any of the digital cleanups that James Cameron has done on
No, I haven't.
his films? They look strange now.
Really?
It says Aliens. It's one of the better ones, I gather. True Lies apparently is like weirdly like unwatchable now because there's no noise at all and everyone looks like a waxwork model.
Oh my God.
Yay, technology.
And he went on the defensive about it and he said, I've got like the best like technical colorist guy out in the world out there. He's done all the Avatar films with me. And you're like immediately thought you've just shot yourself straight in the foot by mentioning Avatar.
Yeah. Because it looked like a video game. And also, like, if you're doing that to like older movies, then they're never made with the intention of you seeing that level of detail. So it can look really weird. It's like with 2001: A Space Odyssey, you watch like the 4K of that, and you can see like the creases in the sheets in the background images and stuff. It's like, do I want to see that? Should I be seeing that?
The Creased Sheets by James Cameron.
Yeah. So anyway, you brought this up, Britt. So what are your thoughts on digital photography? You love it? You never look back? No,
it's like there was something. It feels like one of these things, right? You have this conversation with certain people and they don't understand. And I've had this. It's like almost a duplicate conversation I've had with motion smoothing on hotel room TVs, and the difference in games with 30 FPS and 60 FPS. And some people just don't seem to. I just assume they've been hit in the head with a hammer and they see in 30 FPS. Because you think that there's a difference, as my father used to sing as he showed me a picture of Kate Winslet and then another picture of Jack Black. And it's like, it's so blatant to me. Like motion smoothing just makes it look weird. It's like it's in like a broken fast forward. 60 FPS is clearly smoother. And with digital film, I'm not clever enough to explain the difference, or rather informed enough. But I'm aware enough for it to make me feel uncomfortable. And I just think I don't like watching this film.
And you have eyes, so you can see it looks like trash.
I have eyes that see, that's true. That's actually the first line on my Tinder profile. I've got to cover the basics in this world, let me tell you.
The fundamentals out of the way. I have limbs.
I have arms with which I'm typing this. I have pencils and scalpels with which to cut up the eyes on my scrapbook. So yeah, what are your thoughts on it for you both? It just makes me think. No, I'm not really. I like you say with the grain when you watch an old film, the film grain. It's almost like a vinyl warmth. It makes you feel like this is made by real people.
I think, to be honest, I mean, I'm sure there are lots of really good filmmakers who are using digital and are using it really well. I suspect like David Finch is probably using it, but his movies still look amazing. So whatever they're doing, because there's no reason why you shouldn't still set up. There's no reason why you couldn't just make a movie like you would have done back in the day. So I think you still set up lighting and, I don't know, frame it in a very particular and, artistic way. There's no reason not to do that stuff. So whatever they're doing is, if it looks good, then I don't care what camera they're using. But it just seems to me like it's become the standard, and it means 75% of movies look awful.
I'll tell you how I would sort of sum it up is, do you know Wes Anderson's films?
Yeah.
They've always had that hyper real sort of color texture to them, haven't they?
Yeah.
But it's like that in everything now. So it's like nothing is real. And the movie I was thinking of, it's not a recent one, but one I watched a few months ago now, is The Lost City with Channing Tatum and Sandra Bullock. And I couldn't stop looking at the backgrounds and just thinking, what this just seems like it's someone has just fiddled with the settings on my TV for this one film alone.
There is, I mean, I think, as you Rupert said, it boils down to the filmmakers and their ability and talent behind the camera. Because there's stuff you can do with digital cameras that they couldn't possibly do before. You can film a street at night without any lighting, and you can see the whole street. They used to have to get giant, great big, whatever they are, 1,000-watt lights and line them down the street to illuminate pools of light, and the rest would be lost in darkness.
Except in Bath, where the lighting was completely natural at night.
What are you mean in the sewers where they've got like neon strip lighting? Like pull switches as well. Brilliant.
Yeah. This is why you have to stick a light in
Michael
somewhere.
Mann, film Collateral. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean
that was in the
Michael Mann,
proto
he was quite a pioneer
stage. Yeah, because the motion blur on those films is quite outrageous. But
it's astonishing, isn't it?
But yeah, it was baby steps towards. I mean, to be honest, now I can't really tell the difference between a digitally shot film and a shot film, because I've seen lots of digital films where they intentionally ape a film look, and I can't really tell the difference. Like I did watch one the other day, and it had at the beginning, what was it? I covered it before, and it says at the beginning, filmed on glorious 70mm or something. It really like pimped it as its USP.
That sounds like a Quentin Tarantino thing.
It was a very Tarantino inspired film, I would say.
Oh.
It was really good, but yeah. But then I watched another one this week, which annoyingly I forgot to make any notes about, but that also looked like it was shot on film, but I don't think it was, and I couldn't tell. So I think, again, it's to do with the craft behind the camera, really. And
I suppose as well we should mention that there are plenty of films, pre-digital films, that look like shit as well, where there was no thought put into like depth of field or lighting or anything like that. So they still look like crap.
Yeah, and it's a lot to do with color grading. Like Netflix likes to grade things in sort of 50 Shades of Grey.
50 Shades of Brown.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that's another thing as well, because you shoot stuff in a format called RAW, which gives you the widest amount of, you can make it darker or lighter and still retain detail. So then a lot of people end up watching footage in that RAW style and come to like it. So then when they make it really contrasty, it's like a reaction to that and go, oh no, actually make it more milky and so yeah.
I've always been a follower of Dogma 95 by Gus Van Sant. I think that's what I always stick to, mate. What was it called? Dogma 21? I don't even know what it was. It was Dogma something.
There was something called Dogma 95, wasn't it?
It was, that was it.
It was a film movement, and it had a few.
I think we covered it in a very early episode, and it was like people can only talk if they're holding a 2 pence a piece. It was ridiculous rules.
Oh yeah. You couldn't use any studio lighting.
That seems like a more real rule, actually.
Use any special effects. I can't remember. It was all. It was meant to be like stripping things down to the
They
basics.
couldn't even watch FX Murder by Illusion. I think the rules are so strict.
No watching FX Murder by Illusion in a trailer.
I'm going to be careful when I laugh because it can turn into a coughing fit. So I'm trying not. I mean, luckily Max Hilarity's jokes are at the end, so I'll be okay. But it's times like this when I'm worried about having a coughing fit. So, well, I'm glad that we said we'd rush in and start talking boom, boom, boom about movies, then spend half an hour talking about lighting. Now that all the girls have stopped listening, let's the men can gather round and we'll talk about movies. So, who wants to go first?
You've both got 14,000 films each.
But I think Lazlo was 14,001, so we better go first then.
Okay. I'm going to rewind back to one that I should have covered last time because we were sent it for review. So I watched a documentary called The Road to Patagonia, which is just coming out on DVD, I think, or did about a month ago. And this is a documentary about an Australian surfer called Matty, who's also the director, who decides to go on a journey down the coast from Alaska down to Patagonia, so down the sort of left side of the United States and beyond. And he meets a girl en route, and he surfs, and they fall in love, and she decides to follow him along. And it's basically a sort of surf travelogue kind of film, and it's got some nice dreamy sequences, which are interrupted by slightly tedious cod philosophy interludes about nature versus industry. And I quite enjoyed it on the whole. It's quite an easy watching experience, but I did find them kind of annoying because they're like, apart from their sort of kind of naive, kind of dreamy worldview, but they also like reject man to a degree that it puts them in trouble constantly. It reminded me of that film where the guy
Chris
ventures
McCandless?
off into
Chris
the desert
McCandless,
with
yes.
a Mars bar.
I was
And
waiting to mention that.
yeah, it's like that. There's bits where, and they've got motorbikes, and then they think motorbikes are noisy and part of the problem. So they get horses, but then they've never ridden horses before.
Wow.
So there's like a bit where the horse like nearly kicks her and she's crying. And she's like, I don't even like horses. Like, no, they're dangerous fucking animals, you idiots. And then they take the horses off and then they run out of water. So they can't even give the horses water. And it's just like, you're dicks. Like, anyway. All that said, I did enjoy it, and there's some weird little sort of trippy bits, and some really depressing bits where they can't even travel down the coast because it's been fenced off for like a deforestation kind of plant that goes on for 50 miles, and you're like,
Jesus,
oh yeah, that's a bit sad.
That'll put a bit of a
Yeah, and also I was kind of questioning how much of it's real. Like they must have on many occasions sort of gone round a corner, put the camera down, then driven back round the corner so they're out of view, so they could then drive past that camera and then have to stop and go back to pick up the camera and carry on their way if they were filming it themselves, which is what they seem to be claiming. Because there's an awful lot of bits where it's just there in the shot. You're like thinking, well, okay, who's filming it? Also, he gets robbed at one point, but he's still got his camera and seemingly didn't lose any of the hard drives or whatever he must have been carrying around with him recording this whole thing. And so I don't know how much of it's
addressed
real.
at any point the veracity.
No. It's but anyway, I did quite enjoy the whole thing. Yeah, you could watch that if you like.
Would you give it 7.6 out of 10?
It's probably in the 7 range, because it was even like. Whilst they were kind of annoying me, it was entertaining me one way or the other.
Is it a very pretty film that makes you want to go on holiday?
Yes, yeah.
To a deforestation centre?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely bits of America that are prettier than other bits. But it did make... if I had a motorbike, that motorbike part of it looked quite fun. When they got on the horses and then they had to give up the horses and somebody tried to steal the horse off them and turn it into glue or something, then I would check out of the trip, I think.
Was it a really drunk wizard?
Well, it was something like, I don't know, Colombian sort of gangster or something who assured them that he was going to look after it, and then they asked around and found out that he owned like a glue factory and he wasn't going to look after their ponies.
Jesus
There's
Christ.
such a massive difference between a motorbike and a horse, by the way.
Yeah.
I've noticed.
Yeah.
They're very, very different things.
They took so much longer to do it because of the horses that then they like ran out of money and constantly had to phone people to come and kind of bail them out. So
so they're pretty cool with those humans, the ones that are going to bail them out.
That's it. And all the food they were eating were from like petrol stations and stuff. So you're not really turning your back on society. And if you fell off and broke your back off one of those horses, you'd probably be calling an ambulance pronto.
Yeah.
So,
it does sound like it suffers from the old Chris McCandless issues of being just very stupid people, just being really irresponsible and relying on other people and professionals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they got in some good surfing. So
surfing the internet. Fair enough. Then that's cool. Yeah. And Patagonia's just down by Britt Ferry as well, isn't it?
It took them like days and days to do a 30-minute journey. It's quite odd.
Rupert, what have you got in your back pocket covered in lint?
I can go straight into a screener as well. Right. Consecration. Consecration, starring Gina Malone, who she stars as a woman whose priest brother dies on the Isle of Skye. Under vaguely suspicious circumstances. She goes, it's apparently suicide, but yeah, well. She goes to the convent there to uncover the truth about his death, which she, of course, suspects is murder. Turns out...
She suspects what?
She suspects it's murder.
Mother.
Right.
That's a reference to something, isn't it? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Is it Taggart?
Taggart? Is it? Yeah, it must be Taggart.
As long as it's
There's
not
one for the
Bergerac,
kids.
we're all right.
So, yeah, it turns out through flashbacks and stuff that Gina's dad used to keep her and her brother in a literal cage, and he was a homicidal nutcase Bible basher. And the suggestion is that basically she and her brother went in very different directions in later life because she's deeply skeptical, and her brother was obviously a priest. So Gina Malone's English accent is very good, although she does tend towards that very received pronunciation. She never misses a T. So she's good. Not just her accent, but her acting. Christopher Smith, he made a film called Black Death, which is a good horror thriller thing about a mad congregation, of course. But this
is
is
one that's always evaded me, I remember, yeah. He did Creep as well.
Yeah, he's done a few solid genre efforts.
But yeah,
Triangle.
This one isn't nearly as fun or freaky as Black Death. It's very sober, psychological character study, ghost story type thing. And it really entirely hinges on Gina Malone's performance, which is very good, as I said. And it's got this kind of gothic lighting, I guess, but in a very grounded modern setting. And it's a bit incongruent. I just kept thinking, you could just turn the lights on at times. But anyway, it's an atmospheric slow burner, not scary, and it doesn't really do anything new. It's the usual, like, very overbearing Mother Superior, and there's a sinister and malevolent priest, believe it or not, played by Danny Houston. You never would have thought it. And there's a lot of, like, sympathetic young nuns watching Gina Malone through windows, too afraid to speak out. And there's a lot of pregnant pauses and unspoken tension, that kind of thing. So, yeah, it's pretty standard, really. The best bits are really the schlocky bits, to be honest. Like the flashback to her childhood and her mad father is quite well done. And that does at least explain some of the less rational behaviour she displays throughout this film, should we say. And it all ends up a bit of a gore fest, which is cool. Although by about halfway through, the twist is ridiculously obvious if you've ever seen a film about an apparently skeptical person entering a mad religious institution. So, yes. So, it's overall, it's entirely average, really. It's like utterly hackneyed, derivative, yet quite well made, and it's got a good performance in the middle of it. So, yeah, I don't think you should. I wouldn't go and seek it out, but you could do worse, I suppose.
What you should go and maybe seek out, if you like the John Wick movies, is on YouTube for $3.49 called Wick is Pain, which is a 2-hour behind the scenes. I didn't know what this was really, but it turns out to be a 2-hour behind the scenes sort of I wouldn't say documentary, just sort of coverage really about just what Keanu Reeves goes through to make the John Wick films. And fair play, he goes through quite a lot. And it's just really... and the main thrust of it is literally just people saying, fair play to Keanu, he's keen, mind. And Keen Reeves, we call him. And it just shows him doing take after take with people who are like a third of his age, like these stuntmen. And he is literally dry heaving into a bucket and can barely stand. And then it's like action, and he'll just do it again and again and again. And it's quite empowering to watch, because you think, I've been a sort of supporter of the Wick films and I've liked them all. And now it just makes you want to watch them again, because you realise just how hard they must be to make, and how, as he gets older and as his body breaks down, like what he must go through to do it. And it's pretty much that. They cover there's some Scott Adkins in there, and there's a few bits about Halle Berry and how she got with, I think it was in the third film where she was a sort of dog laden assassin. And just Chad Stahelski, and it's quite interesting how it shows Chad Stahelski and the other original director. I think they both directed the first one. Then they're massively differing visions. One of them is Blunt. It's Chad Stahelski. Whatever I have to find his name out. But whenever it cuts to him, he's just saying, it didn't really work out, and we had differing visions. And it cuts to the other bloke, and he's just like, fuck him. And you think, it's
David Leitch.
It's a different approach. Yes. And yet he went off to do various. What did he do? That David Leitch?
Deadpool 2.
That's it. Yes. So I preferred one, but yeah, it basically boils down to the fact that David Leitch wanted to do other stuff, and Chad Stahelski is very happy to make Wick films until he drops dead. So it's just really interesting. Sort of a lot of the stunt work, because Chad Stahelski is a stuntman. It just makes you think Keanu Reeves is even more awesome than already do, and the fact that it's over 2 hours long seems ridiculous, but it's one of those things that I was watching it, I thought, this could be a 10-minute short on YouTube showing a behind the scenes, or a 3-hour documentary. And because it's almost like, well, if you're there watching a documentary about the making of John Wick, it may as well be as long as it needs to be, because it's so specific that if you're going to watch it, you're going to have a few beers and enjoy it. So yeah, I did enjoy it. It was good fun.
Good. Where's that available?
On YouTube.
Okay.
I think you can rent it on Prime as well. I mean, you have to rent it, but yeah. I'll be checking that out.
Yep.
And bloody good fun it was. So it's over. I'll hand the golden baton to you, Lazlo.
I guess actually this would be a semi-good segue, because David Leitch also did not Money Train, Bullet Train.
Oh yes, with Brad Pitt, yeah.
Yes, which I didn't really like, but I watched Fight or Flight, which is remarkably similar but less annoying, I would say. So this is, I don't know if you guys have seen this around. It's on Now TV, I think. But this is Josh Hartnett doing action, like John Wick style action on an airplane.
It's on the list, yeah.
So he's kind of a disgraced, exiled, former government contractor guy who's then offered a deal to get access back to the US and a forgiveness if he identifies and captures like a hacker who is traveling on a passenger plane. They don't know who it is, so he has to get on the plane and find out who this person is. But a whole army of assassins also find out that this hacker is on the plane, so the plane is full of hitmen and women who want to kill this hacker and then in turn want to kill him, because he ends up trying to protect the hacker to get his deal. So it's very tongue-in-cheek, the whole thing. It's very colourful, and he really goes for it in the loony his performance, which is good. So he gets so fucked up in it that he ends up doing loads of painkillers, and he's tripping out whilst trying to kill people and fight people. And it does kind of, by the end of it, erupt into like a free-for-all where almost everyone on the plane is a murderer killing other murderers, kind of thing.
It's a real failure of security there, wasn't it?
Yeah, this sort of thing, where like somebody will like chop off somebody's arm with a machete and then use the arm as a weapon, that sort of thing. Anyway, the reviews for this were very positive. I would say I would put your expectations in check, because it's pretty thin, and kind of familiar, especially if you've seen Bullet Train, which it has quite a lot in common with, but it kind of does away with the Tarantino-y kind of dialogue and just keeps it a bit more fast and fun. So it's only like
that's what put me off Bullet Train.
About 85 minutes long. Yeah, and it hasn't got as much money as like John Wick or Deadpool, but it's in that kind of tone. Yeah, and it's a bit more like a Boy Kills World, which is kind of or Monkey Man kind of budget level. But if you want some Hartnett action and watching him wearing loud shirts and killing people, you can do a lot worse. Like watching Cleaner with Daisy Ridley.
That didn't sound good. I'm intrigued by the Hartnett Renaissance, the Hartnessance. I don't know.
Renaissance? Well, one of us hasn't seen Bunraku, mate.
No, one of us hasn't.
Yeah, maybe two of us.
Two of us.
Oh, right.
Because I remember watching Oppenheimer and thinking, oh, this guy's good. He's got a bit of Kyle Chandler about him now. And then I was like, oh, that's Josh Hartnett. Oh, my God. And then, of course, he did Trap, which I still haven't seen.
Oh, I've watched that too.
Okay.
I might just cover that off in a quick 2 minutes.
Sure.
Yeah.
But go on, sorry. Didn't mean to.
No, that was it, really. He's one of those actors who was not particularly interesting when he was a young heartthrob, but now is interesting as he's like basically grown up to be Carl Chandler, basically.
Yeah, he looked like one of those actors who was going to turn into a sort of a jowly, sort of balding version of his younger self, but he seems to have kind of buffed up again and he's hitting his stride again.
Like Matthew Lillard.
Yeah. But if he carries on making films like Trap, he's going to go down the toilet because Trap is a load of old shit.
Crap.
That's all from
indeed.
Roger Ebert.
Yeah.
Was that your review of it? Was it? Oh,
it's pretty much it. In that he's playing a serial killer who attends a concert with his daughter, only to realise that the police are using this concert as a trap to capture him. So they don't know who he is.
So where does the title of the film come from then?
Yeah, I know. It's clever. It's the name of the band. No, it's not really. But what's worse is the band is a pop starlet played by M. Night Shyamalan's daughter, who is playing her own songs.
So the reason I haven't watched this film yet, I would watch anything by M. Night Shyamalan, but he's crossed the line here.
Yeah, and this is like 4... I mean, I'm probably misremembering. It felt like 4 full song numbers from her. I think he's even admitted that he kind of came up with this idea as a way of pimping her career.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm not this. I think the phrase like "nepo baby" is thrown about too readily, especially when it comes to the acting world. You know, like okay, you know, it's one of those professions where okay, so you got a famous dad or mum or whatever gets you into the industry, but you're going to get found out pretty quick, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not that bothered about that kind of thing, but this one just seems really flagrant. And that's, I think, Max O'Larity mentioned the fact that, it's just loads of full songs and it's like quite irrelevant to the plot. It's like,
And she becomes like a major character in it.
Oh, really? As well.
This is the other thing.
Wow.
I'm not spoiling the whole film here, but the whole concept, which is quite a neat concept, is jettisoned about halfway through. Like the gig ends and then they leave and it's outside of the gig from there on. And you're like, what? It's so weird. And there's a bit where the FBI profiler who's like in charge of the trap operation is like, when people are leaving, she's waiting by the main entrance to kind of catch him. And at that same time, he is escaping in the pop star's limo out the back, having befriended the girl who's doing this concert and snuck out with her. And I thought, even she has underestimated how ludicrous this plot is. Like, how could she ever have anticipated that he would befriend the woman on the stage and get out of the gig in her limo? It's fucking stupid. Really, really stupid.
Brilliant. Still watching it.
Yeah.
At some point.
I knew you would. I'm looking forward to seeing how you talk around the qualities of this one.
I know.
It's going to be a challenge.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, there are... I mean, I still think The Happening is one of the worst films I've ever seen.
But not The Lady in the Lake or whatever that was.
Lady in the Water. I'll partially defend that as a good idea done badly. Yeah. Anyway, he's still a craftsman.
Yeah. And
he did that
in fairness,
other one.
Josh Hartnett is quite fun in this.
Okay,
like,
yeah.
I thought they were going to kind of water him down as a serial killer, but like he's fairly full on at moments, which is quite fun.
Okay. I watched Lilo and Stitch at the cinema, like many people have done. It seems. More on that
Is this
later.
a wholly original new French?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it is a live action remake of, I guess, 2002 film, animated film.
Forgettable film, yeah, from 23 years ago.
Yeah. Well, yes, more on that later as well. It's about this orphaned Hawaiian girl, Lilo, who's raised by her older sister after their parents' deaths, and then this genetically engineered alien crash lands, meets Lilo. She calls him Stitch. He is a bit chaotic and a bit of a rascal. They develop a close bond, basically, and it's like a kind of mutual thing where, I don't know, she starts believing in family again, and he belongs somewhere, I guess, and he's got this newfound family. Anyway, whatever. There's elements of Sonic here, and I think this is quite a important point, is that we've had like 3 Sonic movies now, which are basically the same story, right? Of this alien landing and finding his family. But of course, Lilo and Stitch isn't as funny, and Stitch is not as funny a character, so he's like he's a bit of a scallywag, but he's not really anything else. He can't speak, so he's just bouncing off other characters. And yeah, like, we talk about ugly looking modern films. This is just fucking artless completely. And it's like totally manic editing. It just looks horrible. Really pedestrian plotting. It's real, like what the youngsters call slop nowadays. I mean, at least the original, which wasn't actually very good, did at least have its visuals going for it, because it had that quite beautiful watercolor style. But of course, this doesn't have any of that. It just looks like crap, and this doesn't have any of that kind of slightly anarchic vibe to it. By the way, I will say the original movie wasn't very good, but the TV series is absolutely nuts. Like, it basically, each episode, a new alien comes to the town, and it just introduces some unique superpower to the town. Like, it will turn people invisible, or it will have the power to like make people feel really sad, or something like that. And so each episode is about them solving this problem and capturing the alien. So that's quite fun. But yeah, in this movie, I guess there are probably subtle changes, but there's a big change at the end, and I don't really care about spoiling it, because who cares? I mean, it's like, you can just read about it online, but it's meant to be some sort of empowering thing. Because basically, in the original, as far as I can remember, the sister ends up looking after Lilo. And in this, it's different. They kind of try to make it empowering because she's choosing like career over childcare, because she's going off to college to study marine biology. But I didn't really see the point of that particular change. But also, apparently, like, Hawaii, of all places, is the one place you actually want to be if you're going to study marine biology. So the last thing you do is leave the place to study marine biology. So it was kind of weird. Anyway, well, yeah, it's a bit baffling, the film's success, I suppose, because it's like, I don't think the original was like a massive success. It was like a bit of a cult movie at the time. It's way less culturally embedded than, say, something like Snow White, for example, which completely tanked. But I'm thinking maybe that is the answer, that it made a cultural impression, like, within a retro range, without like defining animation for the best part of 100 years. So, and I think it's also Disney leaning into the nostalgia of the noughties, I guess, because 80s and 90s is kind of done, and millennial parents have probably showed the original to their kids, I guess.
And when they go back to the 1930s for material, they realise it's racist and shit.
Yes. Anyway, so Lilo and Stitch, don't bother. Tedious. Just watch the original if you really want to, but that's not very good either.
Racist and shit were the names of pet rabbits when I was a little kid. I love those. Love those bunnies. What I didn't love was Raven from 1996, a TV movie starring Burt Reynolds. What?
That's been on my list for so long.
It's a lot of. I know we've got a lot to get through, so a lot of these are 2-minute tasters. So this film starts off with Matt Battaglia as Martin Deuce Grant, and Burt Reynolds is Raven. His call sign is Raven. His name is Jerome Katz. Of course, it is. For a start, on the cover, animal. His head is different to his body on the DVD cover, almost like it's a muscular man's body, and Burt Reynolds' syrupy head on the top. It starts off where they're trying to get this. I watched this so many thousands of years ago, but there's two halves of this sort of decoder that allows you to like set off nuclear warheads or something, and Burt Reynolds has got one half of it, and in this mission to get the second half, he kills his team, or they get shot during it, and Deuce, Matt Battaglia's character, is on the sort of gunship heading off, and he pulls out the second half of the decoder, and Burt Reynolds says, I know we're mercenaries working for the US government, but I'm just going to sell this to the highest bidder and go into hiding. And then he just shoots Matt Battaglia, and Matt Battaglia falls out the helicopter into some water. And it fast forwards to 3 years later, when Burt Reynolds is now trying to track him down to get it. Well, that's what you're made to believe, is like, oh, he's trying to track down Deuce to finally get the second half of the decoder. And then the government get involved, and it's like, we've got to take out Raven, he's a rogue agent, and all this sort of stuff. I was watching this film thinking, first, it's very boring. Like, it's a lot of Matt Battaglia wandering around in his tighty whities, just snogging his girlfriend and stuff. And you realise halfway through, when the plot reveals itself, that Raven, Burt Reynolds, has actually been following him over the last 3 years, and now strikes in the most cumbersome possible way. Instead of just like going into his house where he lives and just shooting him and taking it, he gets someone to pretend to be his fiancée for 2 years, so then they can like sort of worm information out of him. And I thought, this is ridiculous. And what's even more ridiculous is at the end of it, they meet up and have a conversation where they, after this tedious shootout, that actually maybe it is too dangerous for anyone to have. So they hide it again and then kind of part as friends. And I thought, he killed your team and shot you in the chest purely for financial gain, and then spent almost half a decade like basically getting someone to seduce you for you to falsely fall in love with and ruin your social life as well. And now you forgive him. It's a very weird. It's a TV movie, so it's very kind of flat and bloodless, and it's not raunchy or anything. It's just this kind of flat, tepid movie, and then it's just got this weird tone where we meant to just forgive Burt Reynolds and be on his side, and I was watching it thinking, no, I'm not. So it's not very good.
Is the fiancée employed by him?
Yeah.
She must be. So he's employing a woman to be the guy's fiancée.
Yes,
and not his fiancée. Okay, that's even weirder.
Yeah, to seduce Matt Battaglia and like live with him, and
that is and he's a rogue, so he doesn't get a salary or anything. So is she a prostitute? She must have been like, that would require a lot of payment if you are being asked to like live a completely fake life. Like, it's effectively undercover, but in a really dangerous situation.
Yeah,
like 2 years. Yeah,
it's
just thinking. Just thinking of the fiscal mechanics of this.
Yeah, and she must have like won him over to become his fiancée. Like, she's putting in a really good performance.
There's a scene at the start of the film where he's sort of says proposes to her, this woman, and her name's Callie, and she says yes, and they're going to get married. And then that day they're on the beach where they live, and he sees this photographer taking pictures of him, and he takes the camera off him and throws it in the water and says, "Get out of here!" And then turns to the woman and says, "Oh, Raven's obviously on to me." And I thought, so you're telling me that Burt Reynolds hired a woman to pose as your like to seduce you and act as your like live-in lover for 2 years, and then he thought, oh, this is taking too long. I'll have to hire like a shit photographer for him to realise I'm onto him now. That's the necessary next step, isn't it? That's what it makes sense. It was dreadful. I watched this on Plex, by the way, but bloody hell, yeah.
Wouldn't so also isn't it all completely pointless at the end though? If they just come to the conclusion that
let's just be mates, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Does she
and
stick
that
with
kind of
it?
renders everything she's done completely pointless.
Yes.
Okay.
So is this number one in the charts on Plex?
It's got. Let me just. I haven't got my readers on. Let me get closer to the screen. IMDb 4.6. Rotten Tomatoes 6%.
I've worked on things with lower scores than that, so I'm just saying.
Hashtag girls. So yeah, and just Burt Reynolds is so miscast in this as well because he's a ridiculous man. So he doesn't cut it as this like sort of black-hearted mercenary at all. He's constantly just smoking cigars and winking at the camera and like raising his eyebrows with his syrup on, and you're like, yeah.
Are there outtakes during the credits and that where he flubs his lines and things?
No, none at all. It's too boring for that.
I want to watch this Malone film that Prime has been poking up my nose for months now with him, and he's got a shotgun on the cover. I'm like, I kind of need to watch it, but that's what I'm wondering: is he capable of playing tough guys?
No, he's too winky. He's too like of a previous era. He's
too charismatic to be a stone cold killer, really, isn't he?
Well, in this, he just comes across as ridiculous. It's not even a charisma thing. It's just ridiculous. It looks like someone play acting.
Right.
I think in 1995, Mr. Reynolds went downstairs and he looked at his carpet near the front door and he picked it up and he saw a tax bill and he thought, right, the next 5 years are not going to shine on IMDb for me. I think that's what happened.
Yeah. I'm going to be starring Raven, and then I'm going to star in Malone.
Then I'm going to star in Give Him Hell, Malone.
I guess just going back chronologically towards today. Next one I've got is Mission Impossible, but Final Reckoning. Do we want to talk about that now, or do you want to come to that?
I think that would be relevant to do that now, because when Britt was explaining the plot of that movie, he was talking about two halves of a decode or whatever, and this kind of head-to-head battle between these two professionals and all this kind of stuff. I was thinking, this does sound a bit Mission Impossible-y.
Yeah, MacGuffins
galore.
double MacGuffins that you got to join together and stick in another MacGuffin.
Yeah, I lost count of the amount of MacGuffins in Final Reckoning, I've got to say.
Yeah. I was going to say also, Britt, did you actually watch all of the Mission Impossible films, or did you watch this one, which is basically all the Mission Impossible films smooshed into one big mess?
I'll tell you what I'll do. If we're going to do this, can I quickly just lead up to it, if that's cool? Because I watched every other Mission Impossible film apart from this one. So this is good. I can do this in like 5 minutes. So I watched the original Mission Impossible, which felt to me, it felt really stagey. In a really good way, like very set piecey, and it's very quiet. It gave me David Fincher vibes and that sort of lovely audio designer stuff. And I forgot Emilio Estevez was in it. And of course, it's 1996. So you get the glorious technology of them just looking on the internet. The whole sequence where he just cracks who Job is and stuff is just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And it's like, who's good, who's bad. There's a lot of mask pulling, and it sets down the sort of blueprint. And I was like, yeah, I enjoyed that, and it feels very rewatchable.
Yeah.
Then we've talked about the second one, which is just dreadful and feels like it feels like not a Mission Impossible film, just a bad film from the year 2000. So skipping that one over, Mission Impossible 3 has got this shaky cam thing going on, which we mentioned earlier on, but it's also the most personal of them all. So from the sort of small indie almost feeling of the first one in terms of like how far the films go on when you look at it retrospectively. The second one is just flashy bollocks, which was actually my porn name when I used to striptease. And the third one brings it back down, and it's like, okay, there's a guy and a girl sort of thing, and it's like what he will do to get it. And of course, you've got that amazing starting sequence where Philip Seymour Hoffman is counting to 10, and it's just kind of a masterclass in tension. You're like, what's happening? And you're thrown into it. And then
Could we just pausing on that? Yeah. What I love about that bit so much is how with each count, Tom Cruise like takes a different tack.
Yeah.
He goes from like shouting him down to like apologizing to like trying to make a deal to asking him what he can do to like, and it's like he literally tries like the whole playbook of how to talk yourself out of a situation, which, and of course it doesn't work. Anyway,
No,
it does not spoil it.
What I also like about that opening sequence is like it's juxtaposed with because it's such a brutal, nasty like situation, and then it's directly juxtaposed with the extremely gentle kind of sentimental love romance relationship he has with, what's her name? Michelle
Monaghan.
Yeah,
Monaghan. Yeah.
Monaghan.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Monaghan, is it? Oh, I thought it was Monaghan, is it? Sorry.
Yeah, I think so. Yes, so it's just that juxtaposition works well as well.
Yeah. And I'm at the stage now where when Philip Seymour Hoffman rocks up in a film that I forgot he was in, it's always a pleasure because you kind of don't know what you got till it's gone for me with him. I find myself, looking back at his stuff. So I really enjoyed that.
Master.
I should watch that. The third one, though, it does, and another film, because I watched them all when I was ill, they all kind of bled, especially after Ghost Protocol, they kind of bled into each other a little bit. Mission Impossible 3 has got it's a weirdly flat ending in that it seems to be ramping up and then it's done, which I guess kind of suits the style of it, the sort of shaky cam, more intimate one-on-one style of it. But it did feel like, oh, here we go, oh, it's done. But then again, I suppose, is Philip Seymour Hoffman going to be able to stand up to like Ethan Hunt in hand-to-hand combat?
It is weird how he kills him, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of just
it's so abrupt, and there's no poetic irony to his death.
Yeah, it's just he's dead now,
hit by a car. Oh,
and it's a Rover P6 as well. And Michelle, I'll say Monaghan. I didn't realize it was that. So Michelle Monaghan at the end, where he has to shock himself back to life, kind of thing, to get rid of the bomb in his brain. She is lucky. And it tickles me how much, like, there's a scene in I think it's in Ghost Protocol and Rogue Nation where oh my god, what's his name? Alec Baldwin just says what you do is it just luck? And I remember talking about Dead Reckoning when we covered it last year and saying the same thing where they're talking about how this is all top class ever, and you think, is it, or is it just luck because you're just clambering through fallen trains and just jumping off? It's just, most of it's luck. Come on now. But yeah, I also realized when I got to Ghost Protocol Rogue Nation, I thought that they were grooming Jeremy Renner to take over from Tom Cruise, which is weird, right? Because he looks older than Tom Cruise. So when you see them together, it's just like he's not like the youthful young buck. But I realized what I was doing was mixing up that Bourne film, the Bourne Legacy.
Bourne Legacy, yeah.
Where he starts off in in the mountains and having a bath or whatever. And I just thought, oh yeah, I've mixed these up, and he is just a character in this. So that kind of made me enjoy it more, because I thought, am I going to watch a really awkward couple of films now where they're like prepping Jeremy Renner for something that never happens? But it doesn't. It doesn't feel like that at all.
But
and
there was the intention, I gather, that film went through an extraordinarily long journey of rewrites and reshoots and things.
Oh, okay.
And it was, I think, Cruise was looking to bow out, or there was a pay dispute. So they were like ushering in Jeremy Renner. I think it was a studio thing. They were bringing in someone to scare Tom Cruise, basically, and like they had an option for carrying on the franchise without him to get him to play ball on the money or whatever. I think. I mean, ultimately, the film does not, as you say, lead up to Jeremy Renner taking over, but that was the threat, I think.
Right. Jeremy Renner's only 1 year younger than Matt Damon. That was not going to work.
So yeah, and then just going on from like Ghost Protocol, Rogue Nation, where you move from like Henry Cavill through to was it Sean Harris and all that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
They're just good. They're just good popcorn movies. They're just good films to watch and rewatch. So we've already covered. So that was just my little lead up to it. The first few. So yeah, Dead Reckoning we covered last year. So tell me about Final Reckoning.
I would just say, like, adding on to what I think they brought in with Ghost Protocol was also the ludicrous set piece, like the Tom Cruise does something insane for real set piece thing, which they've been cruising off the back of now for the last few films, where the plots don't really make any sense, but you're waiting for that moment where he dangles off an actual aeroplane as it takes off, or a building or a spaceship or whatever. And the new one, like, is that cranked up to 10, where it's basically a shit film with 2 absolutely stellar, bonkers stunt sequences with him.
Yeah. That's pretty much
It's
it.
a shit film with
review.
2 good stunt sequences. Bloody hell.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on, Rupert.
What I suppose my summary would be that it's like it takes all like the worst impulses of Dead Reckoning and like just takes them to the next level, it takes all the impulses of Dead Reckoning, takes them to the next level. So you get cooler, I would argue, like stunt sequences, but you also get loads more tedious exposition and more MacGuffins. So it's like, I guess it all comes down to whether you prefer the set pieces or not, but whether it's better film than Dead Reckoning. It's pretty much the same structurally.
My problem with Dead Reckoning was, well, not a problem. I do enjoy most of them. Like I said, I pretend 2 doesn't exist, but I enjoy the Mission Impossible films, and I know that in 10 years I'll happily watch them all again and skip 2. I know that now. But with Dead Reckoning, it was the whole AI thing that it was planning ahead to such an extent. You're like, I don't know. I don't think that you can plan human nature and variables down to that level. Does it double down on that? Where it's just all about, well, it's always one step ahead, and you think, is it though, or is this just fantasy now?
Kind of, and it kind of renders, what's his name, S.A. Morales, is that his name? Bad guy, kind of irrelevant almost, because he's just a equally dumb guy just chasing around the AI sort of thing. So,
and there's that bit in Dead Reckoning where he says to Tom Cruise with certainty, based on the AI algorithm thing, that one of the 2 women are going to die. But then he just engages them in like a sword fight. Well, one of them's got a sword and he's got a knife. And you just think, the AI, it can't know that he's not going to just get killed by someone with a sword, or that they might just bring a gun and shoot him with a gun when he's got a little knife. You know, it's just tosh. But
yeah, it's the weakest aspect of it.
Yeah, and I know that the films are tosh in general, but when you're sitting there yourself going, "Oh, hang on," you know, the illusion is broken.
But it doesn't. I think that it kind of brings on this level of scrutiny itself because of the script. Because these last 2 films, especially, they're just so dense with exposition, and I suppose it's a problem that Christopher Nolan's had in the past. The need to explain everything as if some great artwork has been painted before our eyes, or if it's some puzzle to be revealed. But I think if there's real talent behind the screenplay, then it tells us little and shows us a lot. And I think prior to a set piece, we don't need to know the ramifications of every potential outcome. We just need to know that the characters are what they're attempting to achieve and what's at stake if they don't achieve it. That's literally all you need to know, and then they can crack on. You don't need to show us every possible like journey out of this particular labyrinth. And it's like, yeah, it's too much.
Yeah, it becomes like an apology for the stupidity of stuff that they then have to kind of justify it ad nauseum. So yeah, I don't know. It's like that bit when the submarine scene, which is amazing.
Yeah,
but it's got what felt to me like a full 20-minute build up to how he's going to like breathe with this apparatus, and the limitations of the apparatus. And then at the end of it all, he just fucking ditches the apparatus and swims to the surface and gets rescued anyway. And you're like, you just threw reality out of the window. He was literally drowned under a vast sheet of ice, a polar ice cap. And you're like, he's dead. But
he is literally
you're
dead.
not going to kill him. So, like, don't pretend that, anyway.
Yeah. But yeah,
moaning
that set piece, I love that. The submarine bit is such a cool idea. But I'm not even going to say what it is, but it's like ridiculously, like, it's absurd, but in a fun way.
Yeah. It's one of those things where when I heard that there was like an underwater submarine action scene, I thought, that sounds boring. I've seen that before, and everyone's like moving really slowly underwater, but it comes up with a very clever way of making it very exciting and tense.
Yeah.
But yes, then there's the 4 hours of talking on either side of these scenes. That
170 minutes the film is apparently.
Yes, it is.
And I'm an enjoyer of these films, but I think from Fallout, it's the last couple have taken a big drop off.
So what's everyone's favourite Mission Impossible movie then?
Oh, that's a good one. Have a look. I'd have to watch Dead Reckoning again because it's the one I didn't revisit because I felt like I watched it recently.
I don't think it would be your favourite.
No, I don't think it would be either.
I guess I've got an affection for the first one. I've probably seen the first one the most times.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it still feels like it's got little secrets to reveal. But then Ghost Protocol, I think, is my favourite in terms of the new formula.
I agree. I think it's got the best balance between absurd set pieces and silly plotting and mask wearing and all that kind of stuff. It's just a lot of fun, really.
Yeah, it's very inventive.
I think for me, it would be, in no particular order, it would be 1, 3, and Fallout, I think.
Are your top 3?
Yeah, I think it would be 1, 3, and Fallout. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed 3. But 1 just seems weirdly timeless. It feels so simple. And then what messing with like floppy disks and, magic glasses. It just feels kind of cute. So 1 in a good way. 1,
and the
3.
heist scene is just rad, isn't it?
Yeah, look, for example, when you're talking about Final Reckoning and Dead Reckoning, where you've got this AI and it can sort of foresee everything, and it just becomes a bit now you see me-ish, if you know what I mean. Like, if that was in the first one, it would work because it's in the 90s and it would be like ridiculously forward-thinking and a bit silly. But now it just seems a bit boring. So, yeah, I would say 1, 3, and Fallout. Possibly in that order, to be honest. Now that I think about it.
That's fair.
Yeah.
No love for Rogue Nation. Do like
so just on a final thought on Final Reckoning, Chris McQuarrie has been around for donkey's years. He's kind of like one of Hollywood's top go-to to shape up your screenplay guy. He's uncredited on lots of major Hollywood films, especially Tom Cruise films in recent years. He's been brought in to sort them out basically and make them good. It's weird that he's been given an unlimited kind of budget and liberty on these films, and he's kind of stuffed the writing, oddly. Like, he directs the hell out of them.
But it's odd that he's been given so much free rein when, I guess the last couple haven't done massively well. In terms of making a profit, because they're talking $300, $400 million or something stupid like that, as far as production costs go.
And they really didn't learn from the criticisms of considering they had time. They've taken a couple of years to do more for shooting and stuff for this one. It's like they leaned into the weakest elements rather than steering away. There we go.
Yeah.
Weird.
I know what you mean, though, Britt, about like the kind of simplicity and the sort of smallness of the original, because you can't imagine a Mission Impossible movie now where like the greatest tension in a scene is like a single bead of sweat, like to drop on the floor.
Or like there's scenes that were like lengthy scenes of John Voight on a quiet airplane smoking a fag. You know, you're like, but it's fine. You know, it's absolutely fine. It because the later films just don't take the time. There's so much to cover, and it's what I like to call the Superman problem for me, where the risk is after you're stopping a nuclear bomb with 1 second to go in a decimated village ruined with smallpox. It's like, where do you go from there? It's like the universe is at stake, and it feels a bit like that now.
Yeah.
Whereas the first one was just him trying to clear his name and avenge his team. There's something simple and clean about it.
I think they lost sight of the characterization as well, especially in the last couple, because there's so much exposition that, I don't know, by the end, you're like, it's got this kind of like family, Fast and Furious type, like overtone to it. But you're like, but do we really know any of these characters? We've spent hours with these characters, and like, it's not like in the original movie, it was all about kind of double crossing and stuff like that. And I kind of like that element of it. I don't know, it just seemed a bit more espionage-y.
Like more about the what's happening as opposed to their private lives. Luther Stickle, you know nothing about that man. Nothing, apart from the fact he likes to wear a hat at a jaunty angle. That's the extent of his characterization throughout 12 films or whatever it's been.
Yeah. It's like, like what they did with Bond with Casino Royale, where like they went back to, it's okay to have Bond just like drinking some whiskey and staring out of a window of a hotel and, you know, eating some nuts or something. You're like, no, this is fine. I'm engrossed because you're in his kind of universe. It's just, and as they go on, they have to just make everything bigger.
I tell you what I did find was boring. I think it's in Ghost Protocol or the one after that where he's just climbing the building with the suction cups. I thought that whole sequence was just like the worst part of the entire franchise. Watching Jeremy Renner look out of a window at a man slowly climbing up a building, I thought, I don't know.
You are dead inside.
So yes, it's now time.
So we've covered the entire Mission Impossible series. That's good. Without even mentioning Dougray Scott.
Can I quickly talk about Locked? If that's cool.
Sure.
This was on, I believe, Netflix, and this is a David Yarovsky film starring Bill Skarsgård and Anthony Hopkins. And it's probably one of the most direct films I've ever seen. Oh, I've just found out it's a remake of a film called 4x4. Argentine film. I will never know the difference between Argentine and Argentinian, nor do I intend to find out. And this is a film where Bill Skarsgård is basically a complete prick who was just on the nick, and he's got a daughter that he's just sort of like or mates with, but has no parental responsibility for. And he breaks into a car to try and steal it and sell it, and he gets locked in, as per the title, Locked. And we find out that the person who's keeping him in there and sort of taunting him while watching him and calling him through the car's intercom, through a intercom, you know, the Bluetooth telephone system, is Anthony Hopkins from a nearby sort of skyscraper looking down at him. And he just teases him. And most of the film is just Bill Skarsgård stuck in this 4x4, like, trying to escape in various ways. And it's just in a car park. And then at the end, there's no point spoiling it. At the end, something else happens. It was a weird film because I was watching it and I thought, I like Bill Skarsgård, and it's nice to see him not in like really heavy makeup as a really esoteric character. But he's just a tosser. So he's like a tosser who's a thief, and like I said, more mates with his daughter than like an actual parent. And so I didn't really like him. And then you just get an hour then of Anthony Hopkins in his native accent, which is quite nice. Just basically called him a piece of shit. and then the film ends, and I thought, I don't know why either of these people are involved in this film. This feels like, you know, a really low budget. They said they didn't add anything to it. It was such a slight premise. Whereas if you think about Locke, with Tom Hardy, he makes it interesting.
Mm.
And it's a bloke in a car, but with this, it's what you think it would be. It's a man stuck in a car being taunted, and that's what it is, and that's how it ends. And you think, right, well, I don't really know why this was made, or why I'm watching it. So
To completion.
The one bit that made me laugh in this whole film was there's a bit where Anthony Hopkins, like in his proper like Welsh accent, is talking to him as Bill Skarsgård is just like thirsting to death. And he's like, oh yeah, I'm from a little town. You probably haven't heard of it called Port Talbot. And he's just like talking about like whimsically about his life. And then Bill Skarsgård just starts shouting at him like, shut up, shut up. And there's a scene where he drinks his own piss as well, which is quite good. It's really yellow as well because he's really dehydrated in it. There's a couple of sequences where he's really thirsty and he looks at it in the car and he's like, no, I can't. And then when he finally goes for it, he takes the lid off and has a whiff and goes, oh dear, I wish I hadn't kept this in the sunlight. That was good. But yeah, it's just it's not even boring, it's just silly. It's a silly film.
Both Argentine and Argentinian are correct terms, but Argentine is generally considered more formal and preferred.
That's weird. I specifically remember saying I don't care, and yet
I knew you couldn't escape.
You know, I don't like learning. I don't like learning. I don't even like watching Avi Lerner films.
I watched Marriage Story, which I've been intending to watch for a long time. But I always thought this is just going to be too depressing.
And it is.
Well.
I did like it. Go on.
Yeah, it is on Netflix. And Adam Driver plays a theatre director, and Scarlett Johansson plays a theatre actor, and they have a young son, and they're getting divorced. And that's pretty much what it's about. It's a Noah Baumbach movie. It's a drama that leans into bleak comedy, as you expect from Noah Baumbach. It's not really about the breakdown of the marriage as such. It's about the process of divorce. So Scarlett Johansson gets this vicious lawyer played by Laura Dern, who's trying to like maximize what she can get from her soon-to-be ex-husband. And meanwhile, he's forced into accepting this slightly doddering old lawyer played by Alan Alda. And the central dynamic really is that the two parents are actually quite amicable people who are trying to avoid drama, but the legal system is like dragging them into a more contentious divorce than they actually want. And I think the dynamic has like two effects. It kind of acts as an indictment on the US divorce industry, but it's also, and this is where I'm not sure, I don't think it's actually that depressing a movie, because it's kind of hopeful about human nature, because it's saying that like all of the acrimony in this divorce is really as a result of the system, not a result of the reasonable people that they are, if you see what I mean. And I like how it reverses the stereotype of the father being the fun one, because he's a bit of a grump, to be honest, a lot of the time. Well, he's pretty stressed, I'd say. And there's a really good argument scene where Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson end up absolutely ripping into each other. And it's quite cleverly written, because there's like a turning point in the argument where they go from making genuine, like, argumentative points and counter arguments to just saying stuff to inflict wounds on each other. So that's all really good. I think sometimes it leans a bit too heavily into possibly like mumblecore territory, like, because it's all quite kind of real and grounded. But there's this awkward scene where Adam Driver and his son have to be observed by a social worker, and she just comes across as a bit of a comedy character. It's not real at all. And in his eagerness to impress her, Adam Driver ends up like slashing his arm with a knife and passing out. And it kind of feels like it belongs in a different movie. But overall, I really enjoyed it. And it kind of, I guess, tonally or stylistically, it feels a bit like Kramer versus Kramer for the Netflix age, shall we say. And I think that's fine. And I think it isn't quite what I expected. I was expecting a pretty miserable, slow burn drama full of navel gazing and lots of pauses and meaningful gazes. But It's actually quite fast-moving comedy drama. It's got a good script and excellent performances from Adam Driver and Scarlett
I was
Johansson.
going to say Adam Driver's always secretly fantastic, isn't he?
He is very good. And it's nice to see her going back to sort of indie roots, I guess. Because she's been Black Widow for so long.
Yeah, it's
cool.
one of those films that I had to sort of, I think I had my arm twisted into watching it because the concept, you just think, oh god, this is going to be heavy, hard work, and then of course when you get into it, it's just a really well written drama, and it's completely gripping, and it's like a palate cleansing experience where you go, why don't I watch more films like that?
Yeah, with just people talking in rooms. It's actually it can be cinematic.
Yeah. Instead of Captain America: Brave New World and other such films. I'm on the edge of I can't really be asked to talk about that film.
I'm interested. Are you going to
Scarlett
say
Johansson in that? Actually,
sorry.
Scarlett Johansson. Oh, she'd probably be dead, wouldn't she?
No, so I think she's muerto in this one.
Okay.
Until for whatever contractual thing she'll come back.
Yeah, someone has got a superpower. My brother actually begged me to stop covering Marvel films on this podcast because he said, I'm fed up of you just saying, like, it's all right, and all the problems run through them all. Apparently we covered, like, Doctor Strange, and at the start of the review, Rupert and I both said, this is the pre-Lazlo golden years, but both said, like, just fed up with them, and we still talked about it for 35 minutes.
Yeah, but it's not our fault. I mean, if they started making above average films, then we could say more interesting things.
Like Raven with Burt Reynolds.
Exactly.
So, are you going to talk about Brave New World?
I guess I will. Now
you kind of, yeah.
It's chronologically next on my list, but I'd almost forgotten I'd watched it. So this is directed by Julius Onah, and no, you've never heard of him because he's not done anything before.
And they've given him this little indie film of these sort of...
Yeah, in no way is he just some corporate puppet. But anyway, and my God, does this film, like, it's a Frankenstein's monster of just no style, odd moments of style mixed with completely ugly, bland CG, like flat filming stuff, which is all done on some soundstage a year after the rest of the principal photography, and it's just such a mess. But anyway, what's also weird about it is the script, because this is kind of like a sequel to the Incredible Hulk, the Edward Norton one. It directly follows on from that and has characters come back from that film.
The film yearning to know what happened directly after that movie.
That Marvel had more or less just disowned is like, this is a sequel to that and the Eternals of all films.
Okay.
Which I don't think many people even watched. But so Anthony Mackie's then thrown into the middle of this, and now he's Captain America who flies around. And again, for me, I think it kind of proved that he's likable, but he just doesn't have like star power. I don't know what it is. He's missing. I feel like what's likable about him is you feel like you know him. Like, he's a likable guy. You kind of got the measure of him. He's no X factor, and that's what is missing in this film. From him is he's solid but unspectacular, and unfortunately, then the rest of the film around him is a complete shambles. Although Harrison Ford is in this quite a lot more than I thought he would be.
Good.
As the president of the United States, who is also quite kind of shady in his morals. And there's some almost clever sort of Trump parallels that they play around with his character. He has a soul, unlike Trump, but he's very questionable and sort of pro-authority kind of guy.
Is there a scene where he's in the Oval Office and he's holding a tennis racket, and there's a load of like big business guys in there, and he says, well, obviously my favorite tennis swipe is the old backhand, if you know what I'm saying. And then he puts his hand up behind him and wiggles his fingers, and it goes, and then someone says, he wants some fucking money.
Does
Yes, so you've seen it as well. I don't know.
Does Harrison Ford have like a really high-pitched falsetto voice in this?
He sounds like Tia Carrere did in that introductory thing.
Does he have
Grapple doesn't even touch it.
Does he have a side parting by any chance?
He does.
Definitely.
Oh, does he? Hang on, I know.
He does.
No,
Of course he does. He has a side parting for 50 years.
He's got like spiky hair in this one.
Whoa,
He's gelled
now.
his hair. He's got some product in it.
Oh my god.
There are logic issues in this film. Like bits where I was kind of reminded of when you guys were talking about the guy who like goes down a ladder and ends up on a roof or whatever it was. Just stupefying nonsense. Like, I mean, it's not even not quite like that, but they've got like he's got a super bulletproof flying suit that can like dish out energy shock waves and stuff. Like that's what his superpower is basically his costume, and this like he's like Iron Man.
Right.
But then there's a secret compound that they know the bad guys have taken over, and he just goes there wearing jeans and a jumper, and they get beaten up, and you're like, what did he think was going to happen? And he doesn't fly into the place, which again is his power. Does
he get an Uber with it?
They have to do a thing. I think they actually do get a taxi, but they have to like cut wires and run like in time with the cameras to avoid the cameras and stuff. You're like, no, you guys fly. Both of you have flying suits. You just drop down from this anyway. And then there's a bit like where they get trapped in this compound. They get trapped by these metal bar doors close. But then he reaches through the bars and presses the button that opens them again.
What?
It's just like, what?
Well, like that's how the jail is designed. So you can reach through the bars and press the button that opens them.
Press the button that lets you out again.
That's fucking amazing.
It's just like they wrote themselves into a corner that they were trapped and then realised they haven't got a way of getting them out of there, so they just put in a button.
You know that Ronnie Cox was dialing and saying, "Look, I can help you with this one, guys."
Yeah. At least Ronnie Cox had to make some effort.
Yeah,
that's terrible. Reaching through the bars, and is it like a tense scene, or do they just there's a button over there and they just press it?
They kind of get trapped in there, and there's people fight them. I can't honestly remember.
That sounds very dreadful.
I've ever heard, and actually, that's weird that 2 Captain America films have now had the 2 most absurd break scenes in the world.
Maybe it's a nod back to Albert Pien's 1990 film.
It could be. This could be very meta and clever, and I just missed all of this.
Or something else.
Yeah. But this has got the Red Hulk in it, which is fun-ish.
Yeah,
I mean, he's basically just the Incredible Hulk, but he's not in it for long. It's like one scene and one and done.
I take it that's a CG Harrison.
It is.
Interesting.
So yeah, I don't know. I kind of enjoyed. Like, I guess I wasn't completely bored. It's kind of bonkers enough and silly enough to be kind of fun.
By the way, Kevin Feige, it cost you 180 million for Lazlo to think that, but he wasn't completely bored.
Put that on your poster.
It's exactly like every other Marvel review I've ever done. Come out saying it wasn't boring exactly, but probably wouldn't watch it again.
Yeah, exactly. I would not watch this again. Although maybe just to verify that I didn't misremember the bit about the button on the other side of the metal bars.
You skip through to key scenes.
So,
I kind of feel like I watched it
to your brother for covering another Marvel film.
I do think, sorry, Transvaal. The thing is, with the Red Hulk and with Harrison, it was enough to make me think, should I watch it? And I think I still might.
It's on Disney Plus. You're paying for it already.
True. Rupert, do you want to lean over and you think you can see a pound on the floor, but then you get closer and put your readers on and it's actually a Status Quo live album.
I need to talk about Horizon Chapter 1 because I've been sitting on this for my entire life.
I'm curious.
This is on Now TV or Sky Cinema, I guess. It's the first part of Kevin Costner's epic trilogy. I think it's a quadrilogy, actually. Thinking maybe
It's going to be 2 films at most.
yeah. Yes, he would hope to have 4 films, but anyway, it will. I guess if the trilogy is made, it will inevitably end up just going straight to streaming because this one bombed, and he put a lot of his own money into it. It should have been a series. That is the bottom line. It has the structure, the characters, and the pace of a TV program. So high level, because I'm not going to get into all the subplots, it follows multiple characters in the Midwestern territories during the American Civil War and their various encounters with each other. So you get Native Americans, settlers, soldiers, etc., all trying to eke a living out in the plains. I guess it kind of positions itself as the consummate Western. It just contains everything. But my God, it is trying to bite off more than it can chew in 3 hours. Like the first 90 minutes is just purely introducing one character after another. It's preposterous. The scenery is beautiful, but I don't know. It doesn't look like a movie. It didn't look like Open Range or something sexy. It looked like a digital movie, and it just, as we said before, it makes everything look like trash. There's some good performances in there. Like surprisingly, Sam Worthington as a morally upstanding soldier, he's good, and I really enjoyed Jamie Campbell Bower, guy from Stranger Things. He has a very nasty supporting role, so that's quite fun. But yeah, as a film, it's not like Costner's previous westerns, like Dance with Wolves or Open Range. It's more reminiscent, because those movies are a bit more classical. This one's more reminiscent of the films of Ronald F. Maxwell, who did 2 epic, like sort of westerns, but historic, like classic American films, Gettysburg and Gods and Generals, which were fine, but they were very like formal and handsome. But there, it was all about kind of. It was. They were real. They were telling painting a picture of a time and a context as much as telling a story. And he had to be like reverent because it was and balanced because it was kind of based on real life characters, which is sort of like excusable. But there's no excuse here because he's got a completely blank canvas here, Costner, and it still manages to be slow and a bit boring. It would have been more palatable in 1 hour chunks, basically. It's got this baffling segue into like an extended trailer at the end. Like, I didn't realize it was just going into a trailer. I was thinking suddenly the editing's picked up massively. It's like people are all over the place. They're in different places. And then I realized it was a trailer. And apparently the second movie has been shot, but I'd be surprised if we got a cinema release.
From what you've said, right? So you say it should have been a TV film, and you said it's long, boring, plodding, and it's going to get cancelled before completion. So it really does sound like something that should be on TV to me, as far as I'm concerned.
It's perfect for Netflix.
I wonder if they'll recut it, because they obviously, it was the second one was supposed to come out end of last year.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I wonder if they're going to shelve them and do an actual recut them as a TV series and flog them to HBO or something.
I think it could be an idea. He's going to have to make a deal with some television network, isn't he? Because it's just not going to happen as a cinema thing. Their excuse, by the way, for delaying the second one was so that the first one could like build up an audience ironically on TV.
Because that's how it works.
Because I think it did fine. I mean, it was like top of the charts on streaming for a while, so it did fine there because that's where people consume 3 hour or 3.5 hour westerns. But I will watch Chapter 2, but I just don't see the mass appeal at all of this. And I think it would have been a smash hit as a streaming series because Costner came off the back. I mean, he literally left Yellowstone to work on this to me.
Yeah, they should stick it on Paramount Plus. That's where all the redneck, like American shows find a home.
They wouldn't even have to decide the ratio for that. There's like screen ratio. They could just let what happens. Let nature take its course.
Yeah. So should I watch it? Because it's been on my list for a while now.
Yeah, I mean, assuming you've seen like Open Range because it's better and Dancing Wolves because it's better. But yes, I suppose if you have a hankering for handsome Haskell Westerns, but it's not even that handsome because it looks ugly. Photography.
Well, that's the biggest disappointment. So what I like about Westerns is like the vistas, and you kind of, even if it's not the best story, you can soak up the
Windows 3.1s.
You still get the scenery, and it does look that looks stunning. So there is that, but
maybe I'll stick it on in the background.
Yeah, I think it's the background one.
Like I did for segueing into Borrowed Time, the Lennon's Last Decade. Not Lennon.
Slight difference.
Yeah. So this is a review link that we sent, and I think it comes out imminently. Anyway, this is a documentary about the last 10 years of John Lennon's life. But if you didn't know the name of it, you wouldn't be able to tell that's what it was from watching this, because I have never seen a documentary before that is so hard to follow. It's completely baffling. Even when it started...
Lazlo's views do not represent those of us at Kino Kingdom.
I thought it was halfway through. I thought it had jumped to the middle. I was like, what are they talking about? It's like they're straight into talking heads discussing a big show that John Lennon was planning, and what he put into it, and then they jump back to when he died, and then it goes back to him in a meeting when he met Yoko Ono, and then releasing his solo albums, all in like the first 5-10 minutes. And I was just like,
is there any point to it? Why would they leap around like that?
I have no idea. It was really strange. I was like, there's no hand holding at all. There's no like title card comes up, says 1980, John Lennon's left the Beatles or something, just to place you in a time and then have the stories relate to that and go in chronological order. It jumps around for the full 2 hours and you're never sure where it's going. It's really weird.
That sounds annoying.
I wanted to stop watching it. I did get on my phone after about half an hour because I couldn't follow anything. And there's so many talking heads without very much visual supporting footage and photos. So after you've watched, a whole selection of old white guys talking about John Lennon, and some of them were like, the stories weren't even very good. It was just when they met him in a pub and stuff. That said, I did watch the whole thing because I felt like I had to. And amongst the sort of there's like these odd nuggets, the odd story, which was like, I found myself listening and interested in that. But then it would suddenly just shift gears again and be talking about something completely random again at a different point in time. And I would be gone again. It was, one of the strangest documentaries I've ever watched.
It's a real problem for me when you're watching, especially a sort of music centric documentary, and it'll cut to someone and say it's about, I don't know, like Nirvana's album Nevermind, right? And then it would cut to someone from a band, I don't know, Perry Farrell from Jane's Addiction. There you go, man, I just thought that album was just fucking awesome. And then it cuts to something else, and you think, wow. Right? Yeah, and after a while it becomes problematic because what you want is either to be entertained or to be informed. So if it doesn't fall into those categories and it's just someone saying something nice, then there's no value there. So, and if it's jumping around in a timeline, not in a sort of obtuse sort of like a Naked Lunch way, then what are they just showing stuff? Like,
yeah, and it had footage.
What was
in
the point of it? Actually, what was the point of the documentary? How does it end?
I don't get the point of that editing style though. Like, it's not reflective of him either,
or his music. No,
no. It had especially towards the end, it started actually having interviews with the other Beatles, not present day ones, historical ones. And I was like, oh, good, people I know. Like, and I'm interested in their opinions because they actually fucking knew him properly. But they're so few and far between.
Just meet him in a pub.
Yeah. And it's like, and also like about 40 odd minutes in, a voiceover began. And it's like footage of John Lennon going on holiday somewhere in the Bahamas. And there's a voiceover. And I was like, oh, a voiceover. And then it went and it never came back again. There's just one sequence where there's a voiceover explaining and giving us a little bit of context. But
weird.
Then it went away again. And it went back to Talking Heads about a completely different thing. It's just like, okay, I don't know. But if you were like a massive diehard Beatles, John Lennon fan, I guess you're going to find some nuggets in this that will amuse you or interest you. But it's a fucking mess. It's all over the place.
Lazlo's views do not represent those of us at Kino Kingdom. Can I talk about Night Game now with Roy Scheider?
Please do.
Yes, please.
Right. This is what I watched when I was coming out of my illness, and I thought I can actually focus on something, and I needed some Roy. This film is in Galveston, down in Texas, where a prostitute is killed on a beach by a man with a hook for a hand. And what follows is 90 minutes of solid gold. It's just Roy Scheider, who is 30 years older than the leading lady. Actually, 30 years older than Karen Young or Lane Smith, I think her name is. And it's kind of referenced in the movie as well, where he's obviously just dating the daughter of a woman he dated in high school. And it's just like everyone just rolls their eyes and like, oh, typical Roy. He's a cop. Most of the film is shot at night, which is quite cool. And Galveston is like a beachfront town in Texas. This is made in 1989, so it's solid gold. His face is leathery. It is leathery. It looks almost like he looks like a burns victim who's had work done. It's so tight and taut. And it's just him smoking fags and driving around in like an old sedan, just trying to solve this murder. And he meets up in the police station with just a load of just stereotypes. And no one is doing any work. They're smoking bags. They're hurling slurs at each other. They're not solving crimes, though, are they? Which is what the public pay them for. And it's just really funny how ballsy his wife is. This is like, and he's in his 50s. I think he's 56 and she's 20. And just they know a serial killer is hunting young women. She's just wandering around pissed, and he's just driving around looking for her again on the taxpayer's dollar. And this goes on, and eventually they realize that this man. The reason it's called Night Game is because whenever someone, I say his name's Babe Ruth, whenever someone who is like the local. The best player in the local sort of baseball team, whenever he wins a game, a woman gets killed. And I picked this up from the first murder. Watching the film, I thought I was supposed to know. So whenever this guy wins a game, strikes out, whatever the terminology is, a woman gets killed. There's obviously a link there then. But the film doesn't make that link till the last 10 minutes. So when it was like, hang on. Whenever someone blah blah blah, I thought, well, yeah, I know that. I thought you told me that in the opening credit. Oh no, okay, we're supposed to not know. And what follows then is what they realize, and I'm just going to spoil this, and you're not going to believe this, guys. I hope you sit down. I was going
to watch this. But
I won't. I won't spoil it. Are you sure?
Is it actually good, or is it just?
It's just
good for what it is.
Luxurious to watch because it just makes you want to smoke and drink and drive around Galveston, basically, like pretty much what Roy Scheider does. Yeah. It turns out, guys, right, and I'll say this quietly, the killer, right, is the only man in town with a hook for a hand. And the way that they come to this conclusion is, bearing in mind the fact that this guy kills women whenever this Babe Ruth or whatever his name is wins ball games, is because he is the ex-pitcher for the same team that was ousted to make room for this new player. And he was in a car accident the night that he was let loose and lost his hand in a car accident and had it replaced with a hook. But Roy Scheider's best friend, who's a sports writer, doesn't reveal this to him until 10 minutes before his wife's going to get killed. It's uncanny. Uncanny. The final fight is absolutely preposterous because we see for the first time the killer, and he's literally a drooling simpleton, like with frizzy Clint Howard hair at a bar, staring wide-eyed at women with a hook for a hand, scraping like death threats into the desk. And the bartender's looking at him and saying, "Can you not do that, Jed?" And no one suspects him until Roy Scheider bursts in and says, "Oh my God, it's him! He's the killer!" It's brilliant. And I loved it. There's a scene in this film as well where Roy Scheider bumps his head on a windowsill in the afternoon and is still complaining about it at night when he goes to bed. What a man. What a man. If he was a real man, he'd have 6 months full pay. And his mates would have said that they saw him slip on a tea bag and got him an extra 6 months as well.
Well, it sounds gold.
Yeah.
It is good fun. It is really good fun. Very 80s. And I swear to God, there was something in it that I was convinced was Walton Goggins, but it's not. It's Sybil Shepherd. So yes, Paul Gleason's in it as well. Don't you worry about that. But yeah, no, really, really good fun. And it's so stupid, but it's so luxurious to watch just because everyone's just eating burgers and it's like about ball games and it's at night on a beach and it's just good film. I liked it.
Nice.
I
watched. Do you mind if I jump onto another one, Rupert? Because I've watched another Roy Scheider film. It feels from the 80s. Feels appropriate. I watched 52 Pickup, which is unsurprisingly also on Amazon Prime from 1986, and this is an adaptation of an Elmore Leonard book, which is what kind of made me interested. That and the fact that it's got Roy Scheider on the image holding a gun.
I kind of thought this would be a card. I almost watched this because it was called 52 Pickup. I thought it would be a card movie film, and I'm a sucker for those.
Yeah, I thought the same, but it's not. Nothing to do with cards whatsoever. Other than, like, perhaps in a metaphorical way. But even then, it's a push. But this is directed by John Frankenheimer as well, who has done some good stuff over the years. Like, he did, was it French Connection 2? And he did Ronin. Yeah, he's sort of an old schooly kind of guy. But this film it's not the best film in the world. It's like a noir thriller thing where Roy Scheider plays Harry Mitchell, he's called, and he's like a businessman who's husband to a successful politician woman, and he's having an affair with what's her name? Kelly
Shepherd.
No, who was married to John Travolta and she died a few years ago.
Kelly
Preston.
Kelly Preston.
Okay. Who turns out to be also have a sideline as a prostitute / porn star. So then the guys who make porn
Bloody
films
women,
with
I swear to God,
film him and her having sex and then blackmail him and say, we're going to ruin your wife's political career by releasing this tape if you don't pay us a load of money. So it's kind of a noir setup kind of thing. And this film is sleazy, like in a way that films aren't really anymore. It's like super violent. It's full of nudity and then scenes of violence and nudity. It's got it all.
Mm-hmm.
wow!
But it's not very good, unfortunately.
Despite
the sexual violence, they literally murder Kelly McGillis while she's naked. It's like they shoot her in a really specific way. It's kind of So if that's your thing, there is that. But it's also got Vanity in it, who I remembered from what was the film that we all watched with Action Jackson. It's Action Jackson. She was like a singer / model / actress in the 80s. Anyway, she's in this as well, also getting naked. But where this has got all the sort of ingredients for a pleasing kind of noir, sleazy thriller, it's really, really basic. like the porn star bad guys, the leader of which is played by John Glover. Good. He's like
Yeah.
really like a sleazy lech in this. He's quite brilliant. But they reveal themselves to him quite early on as the blackmailers. And then he basically is quite honest with them and says, I don't have that much money. And so the whole film then is just back and forth, them kind of arguing about how much money they think he should give them. And him saying, but I don't have that much money. I can give you this much. And that's like the film comprised of multiple scenes of them arguing about whether he does or doesn't have money. And so the bad guys are kind of morons. And they're not threatening, and he's not really threatened by them. So it all kind of it's lacking in attention, and you're waiting for the political element to come into it, that they've been hired by some political rival and there's a conspiracy or something. But there's none of that. They're just simple guys who want some money, and then he kind of fucks them off and turns the tables on them a bit at the end. And that's it. It's really, really basic.
And yet, so many ingredients that are so inviting.
Yeah. So it was okay, but definitely not a hidden gem worth seeking out in a hurry.
Maybe we need to keep digging into Roy and finding that hidden gem, Lazlo. Because I do want to watch more Roy films.
He's got something. Yeah. There is something pleasing about him. I guess it's a sort of a mild-mannered Clint Eastwoody kind of man's man thing going on with him.
Of skin.
Yeah. Gravelly of voice and leathery of skin.
Yes.
Lighter of fags. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, Marathon Man's good. That's got him in it.
Yeah, but he needs to be a main character, though. He needs to be the main shebang.
Yeah.
He's a main character in Sorcerer.
You like Sorcerer?
Huh?
Are you going to mention Stanley Kubrick then? My alarm went off. My alarm went off then.
Sorcerer.
You said in 2000 and I thought, hang on,
Is it 2010, isn't he? Yeah.
Sorcerer is William Friedkin.
Is that made by Stanley Kubrick, Rupert?
Did it? No, it's not.
It's just as good as the first one, in my opinion.
It was surprisingly okay, actually. No, Sorcerer is William Friedkin film from the 70s. It's a remake of Wages of Fear. It's about them trying to transport a truck full of dynamite across Mexico. It's good. It's just like a filthy.
What you doing? Drive over any fucking leaks now?
It'll be a different movie.
Rupert, it's down to you. We're going to have to power on, I'm afraid, guys. We have to get through as many films as we can until we pass out.
Okay, I've got one more.
Okay.
Which is My Cousin Vinny.
I didn't expect that.
I have never seen this before, so I had to watch it. Ralph Macchio and his friend, played by Mitchell Whitfield, are traveling through.
That's two surnames, that is, by the way.
It is. Barry and Friends. It's the only other thing I've seen him in. They're traveling through Alabama when they visit a grocery store and accidentally steal a can of tuna. They're caught by the police, who are actually investigating the murder of the grocery store clerk soon afterwards. But then, in a farcical way, Ralph Macchio inadvertently admits guilt to the murder, thinking he's admitting guilt to the theft of the can of tuna. Anyway, him and his friend are put in jail awaiting trial, but thankfully Ralph Macchio has a lawyer in the family, Vinny, played by Joe Pesci, and he's not qualified and a bit useless, but he's a trier. And this is basically a comedy drama about Vinny versus the Alabama state judicial system, and apparently it's actually quite accurate in terms of legal procedure, weirdly, but it is definitely a comedy. Well, I say definitely a comedy. It's not. You wouldn't necessarily know it from the events before your eyes.
It's a subtle comedy, isn't it? Humor is so nebulous, isn't it?
Like, like some of the early on, especially a lot of the comedy is quite farcical and it's based on misunderstanding. Like that's how the guys get arrested, because in the questioning, the cops never actually mention the word murder. And there's an unfunny scene where they're in prison and Vinny turns up and Ralph Macchio's friend mistakes Vinny for just a rapist, and so he thinks he's going to get sexually assaulted. All very amusing.
You said there's an unfunny scene. Are there more than one unfunny scenes?
There are several unfunny scenes. There's a lot of fish out of water type stuff because it's basically these brash New Yorkers. Because Vinny rocks up with his girlfriend, played by Marissa Tomei, and yeah, so it's a lot of brash New Yorkers brushing up against the good old boys, Southerners. There are some funny gags in this. There's a funny running joke about like Vinny trying to stay somewhere in this town, anywhere that will just allow him to get a good night's sleep. Like the hotel is next to a train track, and they go out to the woods to like sleep in a shack, and it's just like loads of woodland animals around. And then he ends up getting deliberately arrested so he can spend night in prison so he can get a good night's sleep. But then, of course, it's just a load of men shouting. So that was quite funny. Macchio and Whitfield, these two, they don't really do much in this at all. The story is mostly around Vinny and the trial, and Vinny and Marissa Tomei's girlfriend, and which is good because they have the best scenes and they have surprisingly good chemistry considering she's a complete burner and he looks like the heel of my foot. And if you're kind of waiting for the moment when Vinny will like find his feet and actually become a competent lawyer, and of course it comes in the final act, and the trial is quite fun and ridiculous. But yeah, I think overall it's moderately charming in places, mildly amusing occasionally, character-based comedy, and it has like with Joe Pesci and Marissa Tomei, they got good performances there, and
Oscar winning, weren't they?
Yeah, apparently so.
Was it Marissa Tomei?
I think she might. Yeah, I think she did. It has got this appealing blend of believable legal systems and tactics combined with crowd-pleasingly far-fetched elements. So I'll give it that. But I wouldn't say it's one I'll be returning to. Wouldn't say it's a Stone Cold classic.
Jonathan Lynn made Clue, which I have mixed feelings on, but he also directed The Whole Nine Yards, which contains some of the funniest physical comedy ever laid to film.
Mm-hmm.
That is, I'm looking at this, he's in his 80s now, and since 1974, and between 1974 and 2010, he's only made like 10 films.
Yeah.
Sergeant Bilko, The Whole Nine Yards, My Cousin Vinny, Nuns on the Run. So it looks like what he
it's a mixed bag, that is.
What he did was he didn't care what he was the director of, it seems. So
it's like he ran out of money every 10 years or so and made another Hollywood film.
Yeah, he's like, My Cousin Vinny, oh, that was good, so I'll quickly make The Distinguished Gentleman. Oh, hang on, 2 years later, I have to make Greedy now. With, hang on, Michael J. Fox and Kirk Douglas.
So I have not heard of that.
Dream team.
So we've got to power. I've got 3 more I really want to get through, so I'm up to date. If that's cool, so I'll power through them. But Lazlo, do you want to dive in?
Okay, I'll do Heavyweight because that's another one for review, which is coming. This is the one that's coming out imminently, or maybe a couple of days ago, on DVD or rental or whatever. So this is Heavyweight, the boxing film. This is a directorial debut from somebody called Christopher Anthony, who, from as far as I can tell, has got a background in VFX and stunts and things. But this is his first film, and I quite liked it. It's nice to say nice things about a film for once tonight. So this is first, you should be aware that if you're a fan of boxing and you want to see boxing match in a film, you will not find one in this film. This is
in this film about the boxing match?
This is a film about boxers, or a boxer, but not about him actually engaging in a boxing match.
Before you carry on, let me just read out what it says on IMDb. A boxing coach prepares an underdog for a career-defining boxing championship match.
That's exactly what happens in this film.
Oh, so he prepares the fuck out of it. But then,
I kept checking the runtime as it was going, and I was like saying, okay, there's half an hour left. Okay, we can still have a boxing match. 20 minutes left. Oh, this is going to be a tight, lean boxing match. 10 minutes left. And then he sort of started crying and he moped off into a bathroom. I was like, oh, I'm not getting a boxing match here, am I? This is not happening. And it does not happen. It's a bit of a spoiler, but I think it's good to be transparent about this because you've got to set your expectations. What you do get with this is a surprisingly gripping drama based around, and it's largely based in one room. But what they really cleverly do is they give you glimpses and teases of, they're basically in the underbellies of this arena whilst the matches, there are pre-matches going on before his bout. So you can hear the thumping crowds and the music and stuff above, and they kind of march through the underbelly of the stadium as they arrive in cars, and you can see there's crowds of people going into the stadium. And then he goes underneath, and then he's going into his dressing room, and then there's a constant flow of people coming in to visit him. So there's like sponsors and celebrities and doctors and that kind of who come and go, and including the best sort of sequence of the film, like an embittered former friend of his who's now in his opponent's corner for this match. So he kind of comes in and kicks off, and it's just a really intense sort of drama in this changing room as the guy finds out that his mates betrayed him, and it affects his confidence, and he kind of has a bit of a meltdown whilst simultaneously he's got to deal with all these sponsors and all these fans who are kind of expecting big things of him. And you kind of get the feeling that actually he's being set up for the kill in this match, rather than it's going to be his finest hour, and it takes its toll on it. So it's just a good, solid drama with, you know, his kind of entourage trying to bolster him, and him trying to get over his own insecurities, really. And there's kind of some celebrity faces come in as it goes along, like Jason Isaacs turns up as one of his kind of sort of corporate stooge guys, and then Sienna Guillory, who's been in a bunch of things, turns up as a doctor, and there's a tall lad, the lanky lad from The Inbetweeners is in it as a kind of a sleazy sort of media interviewer guy. So it's kind of, yeah, it's fun. It keeps it moving despite the fact that you're never actually leaving this room. And there's odd glimpses of like, I kind of, you can tell that this is on a budget. That's why there is no boxing match. They basically couldn't afford to do it, as far as it seems. But there are like bits where he's sparring and that, and it's quite visceral and chunky, and you think, like, if they'd had enough money, they could have tagged on a really good fight. I think, you know, I feel like it won me over very quickly, and I enjoyed it up to the end. So I think there's a solid filmmaking here. And if they get some more money, then they could do something pretty good.
It's good to know.
You said that he had his friends to bolster him. Isn't bolster where like a cowboy puts his gun?
Bolster.
Isn't that if something's sort of good and positive? Oh, that's wholesome, isn't it? Which is also the same as where Johnny Cash sang his blues album, isn't it? Where that's Folsom.
Did you spend my review coming up with this little string of word games?
Folsom.
Was that boring?
Isn't that what?
Anyway.
No, yeah. I did. I'm glad that
I've enjoyed a film that we've been sent to watch for a change. So thank you.
The views of Lazlo do represent those of us at Kino Kingdom.
On this occasion.
But another thing, but I'm going to have to put a stop to the festivities because I realise how late it is. And I've run out of wine, more importantly. So we're going to move straight on to the Arkansas now. Which was...
Yes.
Rafe Fiennes to Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio. The first time in 103 episodes I've had to look up who someone is. Never heard of Ralph Fiennes.
Fiennes,
yeah. Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio. Also, I've forgotten, but there's I have to do something here because Utah Smith sent in an entry to the last KK that I missed, sadly. I think he sent it in and my phone vibrated as we were recording. So I can't remember what the last one was. I'm just going to play this and hope it makes sense. Here we go.
Michael Bain is in The Rock, who is in The Rock with Anderton. I don't know his first name. I think it's Anderton. Plays the president, not in it much. Who also plays the president in Armageddon with Liv Tyler, who is in One Night at McCool's.
One Night at McCool's. Jesus Christ.
Who is in Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo. Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo. No, a bit early. Herbie Fully Loaded with Lindsay Lohan.
Jesus Christ. I don't even know what that means.
How did he manage to go through a string of Oscar winners like that as well? Like all of them.
I honestly, One Night at McCool's, I haven't thought about that film in 20 years, and neither has Matt Dillon.
Wow.
So this leads us to how would you want to do this, guys? Do you want to do our entry into it first? Ours first, go on then.
I feel like we're all going to have. Yeah, this one was a doddle.
I think it was. Yeah. So, Ralph Fiennes is in numerous Harry Potter movies with Alan Rickman, who's in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves with Mary.
Oh, okay. Is that the one you both had?
Yeah.
Okay, because I've got him on my phone, I will do Utah Smith, and I'll move into the other listeners.
Ralph Fiennes is in Hotel Budapest, is it? A really quirky comedy, something Budapest, hotel-y. He's in that with Edward Norton, who is in a film called The Score with Robert De Niro, who is in Heat with Al Pacino.
Three steps.
Scarface.
4.
Mary Elizabeth.
He uses it a bit there. I think the medication kicked in. But it'll never beat the mispronunciation of David Wenham. That was gold, David Wenham. Ben said the Arkansas. Ralph Fiennes was in Harry Potter and the rapidly stiffening sock with Alan Rickman, who was in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves with Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio. Max gave us 3 entries. Which was Mary Mastrantonio was the maid Marian to Rickman's Sheriff of Nottingham, and Rickman is Professor Snape in at least 4 or 5 Harry Potter films opposite Ralph Fiennes as Voldemort. Voldemort or Voldemort? I've never seen them, so I don't know how it's pronounced.
Do not know.
I think they say it with a T on the
Voldemort.
end.
And his second entry is, okay, so Mary's also in The Abyss with Chris Elliott, who's in Groundhog Day with Bill Murray, who's in Groundhog Day with Andy McDowell, who's in Groundhog Day with Chris Elliott, who's in Groundhog Day with Bill Murray, who's in the Grand Budapest Hotel with Ralph Fiennes, which I liked. And The Burner Route, which is Through Purely Pretty Women from Max, is Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, who's in Scarface with Michelle Pfeiffer, who's in Ant-Man 2 with Evangeline Lilly, who's in The Hurt Locker with Ralph Fiennes.
Nice.
Jimmy Automatic says, my two-stepper, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio was in Robin Hood, the Prince of Thieves with Alan Rickman, who's in several Harry Potter films with Rafe Nathaniel Twistleton Wickham Fiennes, to give him his full name. And both Dave Chod and Ed Wellband said, Mary Mastrantonio was in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves with Alan Rickman, who's in Harry Potter, at your pleasure with Ralph Fiennes. So yes, it's a very familiar route. It looks. Which leaves us with who was the winner? I think everyone won, apart from me. So I didn't enter. There were so many two-steppers there. Mm-hmm. But what are we going to do about this one, this Arkansas? What have you got up your sleeves, guys?
Can I put forward Roy Scheider? Seems like
please.
Okay, so that's good because that's proper different generation. Who's it going to be?
I can hear you scrolling. I can hear
I
you
know,
thinking.
I'm scrolling up and down the films thinking, ooh, what's it going to be? Is it going to be Adam Driver?
Oh, have we had Adam Driver before?
Maybe.
No. Either way, it's a generational thing. So Roy
Is it Adam
Scheider.
Driver or Sam Worthington? Take
We've
your
had
pick.
Worthington.
Oh no,
before.
we definitely had with it. Yeah,
That was a
I think
couple of weeks
Driver's
ago.
harder, maybe.
He's in Star Wars though, isn't he? So
Yeah,
it's
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 trying
another
to
We've done
thing.
avoid
Adam
these-
Driver before too.
Have
Have
Just
we?
looked it up. We did Michael Rappaport to Adam Driver
How
the
did you
hell?
look that up so quickly?
because I've saved them all on a little note.
This is why you're part of the podcast. Look at this. He's got a phone and everything. We dream about having phones. I've got my Alcatel. I've got my Scion 3C Palm series.
Okay. Roy Scheider to Marissa Tomei. How about that?
Ooh. Very good.
Right, so Roy Scheider to Marissa Tomei.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a long one. It's now like 11:30, but I've got to say I wanted to go through mine. I'm ready to go for more, but it is late. And I'll keep my 3 for the next time. How many have you got left, Lazlo and Rupert? Rupert, are you up to date?
I'm up to date now.
I've got 3 to go.
I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, when you
I am not going to be able to remember all of these come next time unless we pick up again soon.
when you haven't got a corn on the cob, you get to watch lots of films, don't you? Have you that's rhyming slang for job, by the way, for those out there in America. Lazlo, do you think next week we should have a catch-up episode?
Yeah.
It should. We'll put something. We had a month off basically with illness and stuff, so it'd be quite cool to do something soon. So we will end then, as we always end, with the beginning of a joke that I don't have. So Rupert, have you got any jokes from Max von Sydow?
Have a little search.
I just realised that I usually got a couple of jokes from Max Hilarity planned.
Yeah, let's have a look. I mean, it'd be worth the wait, I'm sure.
Well, I'll tell you what. I can bring one up that I've seen. What I'll do is I'll. This is even better because what I'll do. We'll end with this. Thank you for listening, everyone. We love you lots. I will be back next week with a catch-up episode for Lazlo. But one of the films I was going to talk about today and I didn't get around to, I watched The Equalizer 3, and Max Hilarity sent me a picture of Denzel Washington sat on a chair with like a graphic equalizer on a T-shirt that he's wearing. So that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said maybe some taglines like, don't mess with the bass or he'll shoot off your face. And my favorite, graphic equalizer 3, big treble in Little China, etc., etc. Well, I heard a laugh then. Was that?
Oh, no, I thought that was quite good.
Oh, no, okay.
Broken
Acknowledging.
the mold. Sorry.
It is good.
I'm
So-
glad they didn't call it the threequalizer.
Oh.
You know, somebody in Hollywood thought about that.
This may well sum up my review of it next time, but I watched it and I told Max that I watched The Equalizer 3 and he said, what was it like? And I said, well, I think I enjoyed it. It made me want to drink coffee and eat pastries. And he said, yes, but so do Pret-a-Manger adverts. And I thought, oh yeah, so maybe it's not as good as I thought. But we'll discuss that next time anyway. I love you both. Have you got anything? Lazlo, you're still new to this, so I keep forgetting. The way we end every episode is one of us sings a note, and then the next person in alphabetical order after me, which would be you, then sings the next note up. Then Rupert sings the next note up, and we do that until we go out of our vocal ranges. So,
Just keep coming with it.